Hi all, if you're a CFA candidate scrolling through YouTube at 2 a.m. and wondering why nothing you read sticks after 3 days, I need to tell you something. I wasted $1,400 on CFA curriculum and I spent hundreds of hours rereading the whole curriculum. And I still couldn't remember anything past 3 days. Then I discovered this one technique that completely changed the way I study. It is so simple that you'll wonder why no one taught you this earlier. In the next 30 minutes, we are going to study together, live, using this exact same method. We are covering today probability concepts, and by the end, you will have it logged in your memory, not just for 3 days, but for the exam day. This is the study technique I wish I found 6 months ago. Let me show you today what we are going to do. So, here is the problem with traditional CFA studying. You watch a video, you think you understand it, and you move on. Then 2 weeks later, you are taking a mock exam, and then nothing. You're blank. You've forgotten everything. Or worse, you spend hours making notes, highlighting the curriculum, thinking you're productive, but when exam day comes, none of it stuck because you never really tested yourself for that. And that is why I started learning using this 3-step method inspired by MasterCFA. We'll do it today on their app itself, and it is a total game changer. Like, it has 3 steps. Number 1, you take a pre-quiz before starting the video or before reading the explanation of the topic, so your brain gets automatically curious about what it doesn't know. Step 2 is you watch the explanation video. Step 3 is you retake the exact same quiz and you get every question right. So you proving that you've logged it in your mind. Now this worked because of something called as active recall. Your brain remembers what it retrieves, not what it reads. By quizzing yourself before and after, you're forcing retrieval. That's what makes concept stick. So today we are doing this together. You and me study with me for 30 minutes and we'll master probability concepts together using this exact same technique. So first you install the MasterCFA app, then you log in with your email, then you set a password and you get it started. Select when is your exam. Start with the free access. So they have 10% of the syllabus free of cost. You can literally just get started with 10% of CFA Level 1 without any cost. That's crazy, right? So we'll start with probability concepts. You go in the course library and you search for the topic that you want to study. We will do a pre-quiz first. As I told you, you'll probably get it wrong. Just try to get it right if you can. Okay, we got one correct, and I still don't know how because basically I haven't read it yet. Now let's look at the video explanation of this.
By understanding some key terms, a random variable is an uncertain number, so if you roll a die, the number that it will land on is a random variable because you don't know what number it will be. An outcome is the actual observed value. If you end up rolling a 2, that was the outcome. An event is one or more outcomes. For example, rolling a 3 is an event, and rolling an even number is an event as well. Mutually exclusive events can't happen at the same time. It either rains or it doesn't rain, so the probability that they both happen is basically 0. And finally, exhaustive events include all possible outcomes. It either rains or it doesn't, there is no third possible outcome. Let's assume that the chance of rain is 70% and the chance of no rain is 30%. Does this comply with the 2 defining properties of probabilities? The probability of each event falls between 0 and 1, so it complies with the first defining property. And since events are both mutually exclusive and exhaustive, their probabilities must add up to 1. So it also complies with the second defining property. You should also be able to differentiate between the following types of probabilities. Empirical probabilities are found by analyzing past data. A priori probabilities require a reasoning process. And subjective probabilities are just personal opinions. And don't forget that both empirical and a priori probabilities are objective probabilities. This next learning outcome compares odds with probability. Let's say that the odds of your team winning are 4 to 1. What is the probability of a win? This is the formula to convert odds to probability. The probability of winning in this case is 80%. Notice that the probability of loss would be 1 minus the probability of winning, which equals 20%. An unconditional probability is the probability of an event happening, and it is not affected by any past events. For example, if you flip a coin, it doesn't matter how many heads or tails you've gotten in the past. The probability of heads or tails will always be the same. On the other hand, conditional probabilities depend on past events. They are written as the probability of A given B. For example, the probability that you bring an umbrella, given that it's raining, is 70%, or the probability of bringing an umbrella, given that it's not raining, is 30%. Clearly, the probability of A depends on whether it rains or it doesn't. Now let's actually calculate some probabilities using the following probability rules. The multiplication rule, or joint probability rule, tells you the probability of A and B. The addition rule gives the probability of A or B. Let's look at each of them individually to make them easier to remember. In this example, we are given the probability of rain, which is 70%, and the probability of bringing an umbrella, given that it rains, which is 90%. To find the joint probability that it rains and you bring an umbrella, you can use the multiplication rule. Let's plug in the correct values so the probability of A at B is equal to the probability of A given B times the probability of B. A quick reminder about the multiplication formula is that if events A and B are independent, then the formula can be simplified in this way. Why? Because A is independent of B, so the probability of A, given that B occurred, is just the probability of A alone. To remember the addition rule, you can think of a Venn diagram. The probability of A or B is found by adding the probability of A and the probability of B, and taking away the probability of A and B. You should also be familiar with one more rule called the total probability rule. It looks complicated at first, but it simply states that the probability of A is the sum of all the joint probabilities.
Okay, interesting. I also thought that this formula is quite big, and I was also surprised to see that in this video they also clarify that I know this formula is complicated, but you should know that why it is the way it is. So that I liked that they are explaining it as a student only, to a student, rather than making it sound complicated as well.
Total probability rule is to draw a tree diagram. Let's look at the economy as an example. Assume that the probability of an economic boom is 30%. A neutral economy is 50% and an economic downturn is 20%. Notice that the events are mutually exclusive and exhaustive. In each of these three scenarios, people could either be happy or upset. But to keep things simple, let's only focus on the happy branches for now. These are your conditional probabilities. The probability of having a happy population given an economic boom is 90%. A happy population given a neutral economy is 50%. And a happy population given a downturn is 10%. What is the joint probability of an economic boom and a happy population? You can use the multiplication rule, which states that the probability of A and B is simply the probability of A given B times the probability of B. If you don't remember the formula, just multiply across the branch to get the joint probability. Now let's calculate the joint probability of a neutral economy and a happy population, as well as the joint probability of a downturn and a happy population. Now let me ask you this. What is the probability that our population will be happy? Well, this is where the total probability rule comes in. Remember that it is the sum of all of the joint probabilities that include a happy population. So the answer should be 54%.
Also, I like the way it is visually represented. Like, it seems so simple when you see it, but when we first solved the formula, it wasn't that simple. It wasn't looking that simple. So this clearly explained the branches, and also the formula is quite clear now after this example.
That's why tree diagrams are useful. If you can draw a tree diagram, you can pretty much solve any probability problem without using formulas. Here is the total probability formula again. And here are the values from the tree diagram plugged in, so that you can confirm that the total probability rule is simply the sum of the joint probabilities. The next learning outcome covers Bayes' theorem, which is used to update old probabilities when new information is given. We highly recommend that you draw a tree diagram with the given information to avoid making mistakes. Let's look at an example. Here we have the probability that it rains and the probability of no rain. The probability that someone brings an umbrella, given that it rained, is 80%. The probability that they didn't bring one, given that it rained, is 20%. The chance of bringing an umbrella, given no rain, is 5%, and not bringing one is 95%. To get the joint probabilities, remember that you can simply multiply across each branch. What is the updated probability that it rained, given that the person brought an umbrella? You will not find this probability anywhere on the tree diagram. You have to use Bayes' theorem to update the probability of rain because there is new information stating that they brought an umbrella. Bayes' theorem uses the joint probabilities to create a ratio, so let's compute that ratio. The new information is that they brought an umbrella, so all the outcomes where they brought an umbrella go in the ratio's denominator. Out of this group of outcomes, which include an umbrella, the one where it rained becomes the numerator. So the updated probability of rain, given that they bought an umbrella, is now 96%. This is a huge change from the initial probability of rain, which was only 60%.
Okay, so also the rain and umbrella example is consistent throughout this video to make it easy for recalling for a student. That also is quite nice. Now we are back to the quiz part that we initially did. So we are back to the quiz. Also, they have notes under this in case we don't have time to watch the whole video. And we can add on to our notes if you want to remember anything from this. Make tree diagram. Instead of trying to remember the formulas. Can add a note here, and then we can get back to our quiz. Now we try it because we have watched it. So number one question is based on Bayes' theorem, and we know it, I guess. Second one looks quite tough, but we'll use the tree diagram that they mentioned earlier. Stock is currently trading at 30, current price 30. If it expands, it has 30% chance of reaching 40 and 70% chance that it stays at 30. If it contracts, it has 60% chance that it remains 30 and 40% chance that it is 20. So like the wrong experiment is 40%. U of expansion is 40, 60. The moon stock is more likely trading below its expected value. It is 30 read. %70 chance that it reaches 30 if it expands. Mm. Mm. First, find the expected value in both the cases if it expands or contracts. So we directly just multiply the probabilities. Then the third question is just adding the multiplication of weight and expected. That's an easy one. We got all three correct. Yes. They also review your mistakes and they'll also provide you the full explanation of why the answer is correct. You can check here. Oh, this was wrong. They'll also provide you the tree based explanation. Okay, that was my first one. Now I got all three correct. This is the explanation. Back to course. And we have finished this module. So here's the best part. I don't have to spend hours hunting down the quiz questions or trying to figure out what to study. MasterCFA has already built this exact workflow into their app. And this is how you actually learn for the long term. Not by rereading notes, not by highlighting, but forcing retrieval. You take a quiz on a topic, you watch the animated video lecture, just like what we did today. Then you retake the quiz and just lock it in your memory till the exam day. Isn't that amazing? So it's literally the technique I just showed you, except it is structured for entire CFA curriculum. Every reading, every topic that you want, pre-test, learn, post-test, and you're done. That is it. That is all it takes. So if you want to stop wasting time like I did and actually retain what you study like I am doing now, just check out MasterCFA. I'll drop the link in the description and I highly recommend it for any kind of exam, not just CFA, but also if you are preparing for any kind of exam, this strategy works because it is scientifically proven. So don't waste your time anymore. Don't waste your money as well. Just go and check it out.